4, 3, 2, 1.
You're listening to Racing World, brought to you by Perspective Group. It's your motorsport podcast show in conjunction with Race Control Magazine.
Well, hello and welcome to the second of the two Racing World shows this week. That's right, there was the one yesterday focused on the IndyCar final from Long Beach, and I think we summed that up pretty well. Amazing. Congratulations to Alex Palou, Scott McLaughlin, Rookie of the Year, Honda Manufacturer of the Year, and of course Chip Ganassi Racing, the Team of the Year. But today's show's all about F1, so let's get into it with my mate, Bob McMurray. Well, as promised, joined by my mate Bob McMurray now. And Bob, this COVID thing and us, the social distancing that we're doing, it's becoming just a little bit too distant. I'm looking out the window, can't quite see you there.
No, well, you wouldn't even do that on a good day, would you? We're not that far apart, but we're too far for that. But for people who don't realise, we're both on the edge of the Auckland area. So we are fully on lockdown at the moment, or level 3. Well, I don't know. It might as well be locked down completely.
Exactly.
But, yeah, there you go. But we're able to see the rest of the world through the wonders of electronic magicry, and I'm either next to you on the screen or above you or beside you or below you, whatever, I don't know. But anyway, here we are.
Magicry also gave us a couple of great races over the weekend, and as many viewers would know, we did the IndyCar show yesterday. Just before we get into Formula One and all the events of Sochi, your thoughts on Alex Palou becoming the 2021 champion, and also Scott McLaughlin taking out Rookie of the Year?
Yeah, well, look at Scott first of all. Scott McLaughlin. That is, he's been there all year, and people tend to poo-poo it and say, "Oh, yeah, well, there's not many rookies and all that sort of thing." But the amazing thing is, he has never driven cars of that sort before. And the guy he was up against in the rookie championship was Romain Grosjean, who spent a lot of time driving single-seater powerful cars, Formula One cars, obviously. So I think Scott's achievement should not be underestimated. I think he felt a little bit short in his own mind about things, but I don't think he should be. I don't think he should be worried about that. He drove well on the ovals, that was obvious, and he drove well on the road courses and the street courses and all the ones that they throw up at him. So yeah, he made some mistakes. Sure, he did. If he didn't make any mistakes, he wouldn't be a rookie. So I think it bodes well for his future, put it that way.
Yeah, he was great when I talked to him post-race yesterday, as you'd see in the other show. And, he talks from the heart, that's for sure. There's no party political broadcast message in there, He clearly stated he missed home. I think the neat thing was that he also alluded to the fact that he was Rookie of the Year when he first went to Supercar. So that's an interesting thing to think of, a piece of history. And as for Alex Palou...
Yeah, and you only get that one chance to be Rookie of the Year, and he's taking that chance. So,
yeah, and the other rookie, of course, this year was Jimmy Johnson. So, he was up against some pretty decent names. So he did a great job. Alex Palou, I just think that this kid is next generation Dixon. I think that where Chip's lucked on to someone here he admitted in the press conference yesterday, through a phone call from Roger Yasukawa, who is looking after Alex's interest from Team Go in Japan. You and me have both had quite a bit of time with Roger over the years, in the early days of the Indy 500 shows at TVNZ when he was still driving. And so Chip wasn't necessarily looking at Alex, but he got Alex, and I think Alex is a keeper now for sure.
Absolutely. Alex, I think, is either Scott's younger son or his bastard son or his younger brother. He's reacting, his driving, the way he talks, the way he does everything is very much in the mould of Scott Dixon. And going back to Roger Yasukawa, that connection, incidentally, Roger's father, Minoru Yasukawa, has actually worked for McLaren's for many, many, many years as the Japanese link between everything McLaren and everything Japan, especially in the Honda days. So there is, you can continue that, once or twice or 3 times removed, even through motorsport these days. But Alex Palou, yeah, I think a lot of some teeth of the race was taken away simply because Pato O'Ward had an issue earlier on, and that issue was caused by Jones, which was a pretty silly move, I've got to say, on the very first lap of the race, which took effectively Pato O'Ward out of it, because clearly that's what did the damage to then go on to breaking a drive shaft and further on, which is a bit of a shame. But even Palau had to be careful all the way through the race. But he didn't look like he was being careful. He was driving like Scott Dixon. He was driving with such solidity and such intelligence and such masked aggression that he's clearly a successor to Scott. And I think Chip Ganassi has really, he's slid a new driver in there. And don't forget, that driver was beaten by our own Nick Cassidy in Japan on many occasions when Palau was in Japan racing there. Yeah. So, but for the different fortunes, Nick's in Formula E now, and Palau is the IndyCar champion. Well,
that's where the cookie crumbles.
Take the turns in the road is what happens, isn't it?
And speaking of fortunes, as we also alluded to in the show yesterday and confirmed this morning, MSR Meyershank Racing signing Simon Pagenaud, not sure how many years, but him and Elio line up alongside each other as part of the development program of MSR for 2022 and maybe beyond. 2 500 winners there, 2 former Penske teammates. They get on well with each other. I think that will be pretty interesting. But the one takeaway factor I have from that, and I'd be interested in your thoughts on this, is the fact that Penske haven't said at all what they're going to do with the 4th car, whether it's parked up, whether there's a driver in mind for the 4th car. We don't know. All these other teams like Junkos and MSR and Rahals, they're all expanding their car count, and Penske have said absolutely nothing right now. Yeah,
well, there's 2 ways of looking at it, really. Either they're not going to run a 4th car, or they can't find a driver adequate enough to put in the 4th car, because that cupboard is a little bit bare unless they choose a rookie somewhere. But on the other hand, there's Ryan Hunter-Reay looking for a drive. I can't see that he would be a Penske driver, to be honest, not at his stage of the career. So I suppose it points to the fact that unless they're going to put a rookie driver in there or somehow come up with somebody magical, they're not going to run a 4th car. It's as simple as that, which I think is a little bit surprising.
Yeah, me too.
Because I think they rely on having 4 cars in their team.
Yeah. I can't see another rookie there also because of just the period of where McLaughlin is. He's still in those early phases of things. But it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But, IndyCar, we can talk about that again some other time. Let's get to your topic. Nearly another McLaren win. Nearly. It was one of these, a Silver Star one for Lewis Hamilton. 100 Grand Prix. That is a major milestone in Sochi.
Yep. I don't care who says what about him. That is the most incredible feat. You can go back to all the greats of time, Jim Clark and Ayrton Senna. Nobody won anywhere near the number of races that Lewis Hamilton has. Schumacher, come a bit close, and all the old greats. But that was then, and this is now. And you cannot take anything away from Lewis Hamilton, the fact that you win 100 Grand Prix. End of story. That's all there is to it.
You don't do it easy.
Most Grand Prix. Rarely has he been gifted a Grand Prix. He was almost gifted one in Russia, but I think he probably had the measure of it overall. But Lando Norris would have won that race had Lando Norris not, I'm going to say, made a mistake himself by trying to outthink his own team. But the team weren't, what's the word? They weren't definite enough what they said to him. Yeah. And I think his inexperience that possibly caused that. I can understand why. You're in the lead. The only thing you can do in the lead is lose it. You can't get the lead. You've already got it. The only thing you can do is lose it. And I think he was I think he made absolutely the right decision in his own mind at that time, which turned out to be the wrong decision. So does that qualify hero to zero? No, not quite. I think he was still a hero for the way he drove over the whole weekend. So, it's a shame. He lost it. It's a shame. And he'll grate on it. And it's going to be, it's going to be stirring. What did Hansen say? The pebble under your towel on the beach or whatever until the next race, and maybe until the end of the season, and maybe into next year. But it was a shame he lost it. But kind of it was his own fault. That's all there is to it.
I think you're right.
That's all.
I think you're very right in the sense that maybe the team weren't strong enough, because when you hear those calls from these guys, Mercedes, to Lewis or to Valtteri, they are very definite calls, and sometimes even Lewis has been heard to answer them back, saying and question the decision, but he obeys the decision. Whereas this time round, it was the driver that made the decision rather than the team.
Yeah, well, the team never gave him a decision. The team never
No.
said, you must come in. I mean, they just said, are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. And it carried on like that for a little while. But when you look at the times, he wasn't that far off. He was actually ahead of Lewis Hamilton. Even when it was raining, he was doing better times than Lewis Hamilton. It's just that he chose the wrong time to come in, whereas more experienced drivers came in straight away. I mean, look, the first driver to come in was Kimi Raikkonen. How much experience can you have apart from having Kimi Raikkonen? But the fact is, it's much easier to come in and do that sort of thing when you are second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth down the line, because you're going to be gambling on getting further up. As I say, once you've got the lead, the only thing you can do is lose it.
Yes.
And by making the wrong decision, you lose it. And he lost the lead because of making a wrong decision. In fact, he lost it all the way down to 7th, which he was actually quite lucky to get, because I think he should have been penalised for the indiscretion about going back over the pit lane entry. But another thing, it's not my call on that. It was.
It was an interesting mix because of the fact that obviously we lost FP3 because of the weather, and straight into qualifying, and to have George Russell and co up there as well. It kind of mixed things up quite a bit, really, and I quite liked that, actually. It was, I woke up and saw the headline. I thought, this is cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the old thing about rain, isn't it? It just comes in and it does strange things to a race. Second, the Grand Prix circuit at Sochi has never been particularly interesting as a Grand Prix track, and I don't think it is this time. But that threw up really a pretty good race all the way through. But it was a very good race as a race. As an unpredictable, who knows what's going to happen for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 laps, whatever it was. But generally, it was a pretty good race. There was quite a lot going on all the way up and down it. I mean, quite a lot of people made hay massively. I mean, the biggest winner of the weekend, in my opinion, was Max Verstappen, taking a new engine, starting at the back and finishing second. Well, I mean, that cut a huge loss out of his potential loss, and he's only now 2 points out of the lead from Hamilton, effectively.
And you've got that engine in stock now as well. That engine's there now. That the change is done.
Yeah, exactly. Which perhaps the Mercedes engines are not. There's a lot of issues going on with Mercedes engines up and down the grid. So. Yeah, there's going to be an inquest at McLaren. Of course, there's going to be a massive inquest. It's not going to be a chat about it. It's going to be an inquest. They've got to change things there, because all of a sudden they're getting to be the front end of the grid more often, and they're acting like they're not at the front end of the grid. They're not quite used to it as they were used to it in years past. So maybe that's got to change a little bit.
I thought that Carlos drove very well early on. It was a good start from him. It was pretty aggressive at the start, but again, it showed that there is potential there with the combination of Carlos Sainz and Ferrari. It's just, again, a case of harvesting that, and we're not going to see that this season, but bodes well for the future.
I think the potential of those two drivers together is enormous, in that they are. I think that's probably one of the best driver. I think probably that could be the best driver combination of the whole grid, to be honest, because Sainz has really got his feet under the table there now, and he's giving Leclerc maybe a little bit of a hurry up in the way he's driving, and he just seems to have things more under control. He's making mistakes still. He's going off and crashing a little bit, but the way he handled that race, I thought he did very well indeed. I was reflecting on the fact that it was Norris and Sainz up the front all the time, apart from the fact that just for a little while there, it was McLaren 1 and 2 with Ricciardo in second. I think with Sainz, Ferrari have got a really good combination going with Leclerc. Leclerc drove very well as well. Of course, he was starting with the back of the grid. I mean, he made up 6 or 7 positions on the first lap, which is pretty amazing. Talking about the first lap, Fernando Alonso as well. He had such a great race, and I thought he was fantastic on the first lap.
We're starting to see Alpine in amongst this more and more as well, a bit like McLaren. And the cars that we're not seeing there, obviously, are Aston Martin, AlphaTauri. They're not there as often now, and these other cars are coming in. Ocon's doing a reasonable job. Fernando, it's almost a bit like the old Fernando is coming back, but you're seeing this consistency from Alpine, which we haven't seen when it was called Renault.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I mean, when that move of Alonso of basically the first turn, I know it's turn 3, was just magical. He had no intention of going around the track there. He was going to go across that bit anyway, which apparently he'd practiced in anyway. He's leading that team forwards. He is leading that team forwards. His experience and everything else is taking them forwards, which is good.
Well, that's the job that he's employed to do.
Yeah, so many of the teams we used to think of being the traditional back runners, if you like. Okay, well, effectively Haas still is. I still have my Haas coffee mug here, which I drink out of every day, which is about the only thing good about them at the moment. And yes, the Alpha team is they're getting a bit. I'm not sure what's going to happen with Bottas next year, but Williams are climbing up there a little bit more with Russell. Depends
not with Latifi. Not with Latifi.
Well, not necessarily. He's done well, but he's up and down. But with Russell, he's dragging them forward. They should be better in the future, especially with the new regulations coming. So I think we've got a tightening of the grid generally and a tightening of a lot of new drivers coming in and getting experience. But I think Russia showed that all we need, once again, is a bit of rain, a bit of unpredictability, and there you have a race which is kind of riveting, and you have to watch all the time.
That's good.
It was just good.
That's part of the spectacle of the thing. And talking to that, F2, obviously both the Kiwi drivers back at it again. Kind of semi-average weekend for both of them, really. Marcus doing okay, Liam having some moments, but it's going through the motions a little bit.
Yeah, they've got 2 rounds left, and Liam was driving well, but it was I don't know what to say about his weekend. Really, it just didn't work, did it?
No.
As simple as that. It just didn't work. They tried a new strategy or a different strategy in the feature race, with him starting on hard tyres and going longer and longer and longer, and then changing onto softs at the end, and it simply didn't work. He kind of finished where he started, and that was all there was to it.
Yeah.
With Marcus seems to be, mercurial. I keep coming back to that word. He's really good and drops back, and then all of a sudden disappears. And I can't figure out half the time how his race pans out, whether it's his problem or the team or the car not working very well. Whatever it is, they're having a difficult time. Whether Marcus is going to be there next year or not, who knows in Formula 2, whether he'll be a Ferrari Academy driver, I don't know. I keep reading that Liam Lawson is going to be a reserve driver for a Formula 1 team next year. If that happens, well, that's a huge step up, and presumably he'll have to carry on with his sports car driving, but maybe not, because they're bringing Formula 2 and Formula 3 back together again next year at the Grand Prix, with only 2 races per formula per weekend, which is much different to this year. I haven't liked this year with this, you qualify on one day, and then you reverse the grid positions for the first race, reversed again for the second race, back to grid positions for the last race. It's very confusing, and I think it's not very good. Plus the fact they have weeks and weeks and weeks in between races. I mean, the next race now is, I don't know, December or something, whatever it is. It's just ridiculous.
It's a bit like what's happened in the US now, and I have a lot of time, a lot of respect for Dan Anderson, but Penske Entertainment Group taking Indy Lights back under its wing from next year onwards. Obviously, there's an intention to profile what Indy Lights is doing, just as F2 and F3 do for Formula 1, and Anderson will still look after the bottom half of the road to Indy Series, but with Indy Lights back in there, I think that talk of maybe Hunter McElrea in a car next year in the Indy Lights program, I think that makes that just that much stronger, because they will be with the main game on a regular basis. Because just like what you're just saying with F2 and F3, they've gone off and done races in New Jersey and all this sort of thing. Meanwhile, IndyCar's in Portland, and I think bringing the thing back together again will be a good move in that side as well.
Yeah, I think so. It concentrates everything in the one place.
It's a talent finder at the end of the day.
yeah, the teams can see what everybody else is doing. You know, the big teams can see what the younger teams are doing and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think it's a good move, certainly from Formula 2, Formula 3.
And
But,
Brendan Leach was back out in the Lamborghini again in Europe over the weekend as well.
at Monza, yes, he was. I haven't got the results with me. I'm not quite sure what happened, but it's good that Brendan is actually driving that thing and driving it pretty well. I think he had a reasonable weekend. It's bad of me not to have looked or copied the results down. I can't remember now. I looked at them yesterday.
I think the impressive thing again is the fact that it's just Kiwis behind cars, and as we've said, we're not critical of Marcus or Liam or anything. It's amazing what all these guys are doing, and to have Brendan Leach driving at some of these circuits around the world in a brand car like Lamborghini is is significant again to the talent that comes out of this country, and that's the number one thing, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and you as trustee of the Elite Academy, and me as a past trustee, and now me being a trustee of the Kiwi Driver Fund, Liam, Marcus, Brendan, they've all been recipients of both. They've been through the Elite Academy and they have been recipients of the Kiwi Driver Fund. And that's something that really New Zealand has a unique perspective on encouraging young motorsport talent. Unfortunately, in these days, the money is not there for either the Kiwi Driver Fund or the Elite Academy. So we've got to concentrate on getting that to get more drivers through. But if we can keep on doing that all the time, then, we're going to have more drivers come along. If they ever get to 100 Grand Prix wins, I'll be very happy, but I can't see too many drivers doing it. So I think the whole weekend, it is a milestone for any Grand Prix driver to have 100 wins. And I think it's a fantastic milestone that Liam and Marcus and those people can try and hope to get to. But, you just got to congratulate Lewis Hamilton. He's divisive. He's totally divisive on the way he lives and the way he does things. I don't care about any of that. I really don't.
What he does behind the wheel.
Yeah, he can dress up as funny as he likes to be in Hollywood or whatever. No, I just don't care. But what he does and how he does it and how he goes about his own racing when he's in the car, that's what matters. And that's what I think is the most important thing about him. So congratulations to him on 100 wins. Amazing, really, when you think about it. He's won nearly 30% of all Grand Prix. Something like that. That's amazing. Amazing.
Two quick things before we go. One, staying with the Formula One theme. I don't know if you've seen it, but once we get through COVID, you'll have to come up for a coffee date. The Schumacher doco on Netflix. I thought that was pretty good, but it left a little bit of the story short. But the one thing that came out very much, and it applies to what we've been saying with Lewis and with Dixon and all this people, it's the work ethic that these guys have behind the scenes. It just highlighted that. That was the one takeaway factor I got from that doco, was seeing Schumacher, at Maranello and places when it was pitch black, still turning laps in the car to develop the car. And no matter what your feeling is with him, or whether it's, with Lewis or whatever, to see a driver with that sort of work ethic is just, that's the hidden part of the sport, isn't it?
Yeah. I haven't seen the Netflix documentary, much to my wife's chagrin. I didn't want to see it. I'm coming round to seeing it now. I mean, I was there for pretty much all his career. So I saw it in real life. I don't know how to say it without sounding strange about it. I just didn't want to see it straight away. That's all. I don't particularly want to keep thinking about this guy that was who he was, is just presumably lying in bed. I don't know. Nobody knows. Exactly. So I will watch it. But yeah, there is a different mindset, mentality, as you say, with the Dixons and Schumacher and Hamilton, that sort of thing, about keeping on with the job and doing it all the time. Yeah.
It's a comment that Dixon's made a lot this year, and same with Alex Palou and even Chip yesterday, the work ethic of Jimmy Johnson. And whilst it was his first year in IndyCar, the work ethic behind the scenes is evidently just phenomenal. And even Dixon says, man, this guy does a lot behind the scenes. So, credit to those guys. This is what makes drivers the best. It's all of that stuff that goes into it.
Yeah, you've got to have talent, but there's lots of talented drivers. What the difference between a talented driver and the most successful driver is basically what they do out of the car.
Yeah.
Rather than what they do in the car.
And then finally, before you go, and hopefully next week we'll get our mate Fogues on the line and we'll be able to debate this probably at length, knowing Mr. Fogarty. But Supercars in Australia announcing the other day, a whole bunch of events come in at Sydney Motorsport Park to try and get their championship done. Some day races, some night races, some desperation races, I feel, really, to call it a championship. I don't know if I agree with everything being hosted at SMP, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I've been listening to all that and taking it with a bit of a grain of salt, because how they can come up with their calendar, not knowing if they're going to be in lockdown, not in lockdown, I don't know. I mean, there's been as many races cancelled as they've announced over the year. So I hope it works, because I think we're missing seeing it on TV. I do really hope it works. And if they want to run 10 races at one track and just try and adjust it a little bit, much the same as Formula One have tried in Middle East, then fine. So I'd look forward to seeing them again, because, you know, any race driver needs to be race driving. And people like Shane Van Gisbergen thrive on it. For them to not be race driving and just to wait weeks and weeks and weeks for something to come along to drive in is just not good. I hope that works. We'll see what Folks has to say about it, because I'm sure he'll probably have a reasonable opinion, good, bad, or indifferent about it, but it won't be indifferent. I'm pretty sure about that. But yeah, we'll see what comes.
With a bit of luck, he'll be our guest on the show next week, and we can debate the whole show about the virtues of Victoria and lockdown as well, and the situation with V8 supercars. But we'll end the show for now. Bob, congratulations to the Silver Arrows, particularly to Lewis Hamilton. 100 wins in Grand Prix racing. Phenomenal, isn't it? Yeah, it is. There's no doubt about that. It absolutely is. So, yeah, good on them. And good on McLaren too for actually getting somewhere. Wonderful.
Well, as always, it's great to catch up with Bob, and he has such a huge insight into Formula One. We've still got a lot of Grand Prix to go this year, so I'll challenge him on a bit of that insight, and we'll see how it pans out. Lewis Hamilton or Max Verstappen, that's what it's going to come down to. It'll be interesting, let's just say that. Hopefully next week we'll catch up with our mate across the ditch, Mark Fogarty, talk all about V8 supercars, find out what's going on there. He's the man with his finger on the pulse in Australia, editor-in-chief for Auto Action magazine over there, so we're sure to get the good oil from him. And we're also hoping to catch up with Marcus Armstrong in the coming weeks as well, and find out just what he's up to in 2022. But until then, stay safe out there. Remember that COVID thing. Stay very, very safe. Be COVID smart. And thanks once again for watching Racing World.